Hi, welcome to my PlayHouse, and today I want to continue my talk about virtualization and what to do when you get a new server, because you can save a lot of money and time and effort and everything by going virtual. And I had this question on my channel just lately. I've got a brand new server, how do I proceed? And I did answer that, and it was something like configure the IMM and install VMware. So, but why? Well, I just put on a lot of notes on my servers here and give the servers different roles, and I'm still playing around with that. This is a company. This is all the stuff that we want to run. Right now that's like 8 servers. Yeah, 8 servers, and everything is running on those. So if we get a new server, we could move all of these things over to the new server. So we're gonna get a new server. Have a new server node here, and we're just gonna let's take the top one, this one. That's our new server, and it comes fresh off from the store or where you buy servers. I don't know where you buy your servers. There's nothing on it. So the first thing you do, you set it up in the Datacenter. I have tons of videos of me putting up new servers and configuring the IMM adapter and going into my computer and doing all the rest. And what I do is I install VMware on it. VMware ESXi on top of that. And when you have that on there, you can install operating systems. We have a lot of operating systems that you can install on those. I think we have been through, you can install Linux, no problem. You can install Microsoft Server 2003. You probably wouldn't do that, it's getting old. You could install maybe some Windows 10 clients. That might be a jump server or something like that. You could do that. You could install Windows 95. You would probably not install a new Windows 95. It's getting old too. But you might have some application that only runs on Windows 95. And it's a great place to have that because, well, we'll get into that. You can install DOS. You can install Microsoft Server 2012. All of that can fit on that server. As long as you have VMware in the bottom of it, you can install multiple operating systems, and every operating system will be acting as if they're on their own independent server. And the really cool trick about this is, let's say that this is a Lenovo server. Let's say it broke down. It's not going to do that. It's a Lenovo server, or it's an IBM server, now a Lenovo server. And there was a really good deal on something else. Down here I have an HP server. I might want to say, well, that server broke, I have to get a new server ASAP. So the first and best thing that I could get was an HP server. I could have that. I would do exactly the same thing. I would put it in the rack, I would configure the remote access and put VMware on it. And then it would be ready for me to put over all the operating systems that was on the old server. Like as long as I have access to the disks, I could copy the servers over. When you install a virtual machine in VMware, it's like files. Every server will be like, depending on how big it is, but from about a couple of gigabytes to 100 gigabytes of data. So copy the data over and boot the server, and everything will be just as if nothing had happened. It will use the same IP number, it will use everything. There is no hassle with, it knows what hardware to expect. There is no, you're on a HP server, there's another RAID controller, network cards, graphics cards, everything is different. But because you have VMware as a layer that translates from the physical hardware to the virtual hardware, everything will be seamlessly. You can just move it over and it will keep running. You can have an old server and upgrade to a new server. Even though all the hardware is different, the virtual machine will run just as well. There is a little bit of an you can get into some issues with if you're changing from an AMD processor to an Intel processor, but it should also work. I have done this and it hadn't worked. I did it on my Datacenter over here. I tested Intel versus AMD blades, and it was the same machine. I just merged it or copied it or what you do, and it worked great. No problem whatsoever. All these systems that you have here, let's say These are systems that we're gonna be moving over into our virtual environment. We can actually have a VMware convert a physical server. It's called P2V, physical to virtual. You run a program that says this server, I want it to be a virtual server. So you run the program and tells it which VMware host it's going to be running on, and that piece of software, it's a VMware converter or something, it copies the physical server over to become a virtual server. And then you can turn off the physical server and just keep running as a virtual server. This software works on most systems without a glitch, and you can do it on Microsoft and Linux and a lot of operating systems. You can just move them over, even novel NetWare. So when you've copied over all your physical servers over to a virtual server, you can turn off all these servers. They're not needed anymore. As long as the new server has enough RAM and decent amount of processing power, it will be good. Like you have some servers here and they have an amount of RAM, and you don't need as much RAM as these combined in the virtual server because it's able to borrow RAM from systems. You might have a server here, let's just say the web server. It's the server comes with 2 gigabytes, but the web server is only using 512 megabytes. I don't know, it might. So that leaves 1.5 gigabytes of RAM for something else. And the same thing goes with the DNS DHCP server right here. That server also came with 2 gigabytes and it's only using 1 gigabyte of RAM. So now we have 2.5 gigabytes of RAM that is never used. And in a host, that memory can be given to other systems. You can even overcommit RAM. You can say to the server, web server, you have 4 gigabytes of RAM available, even though the server only has 2 gigabytes of memory installed. As long as you don't hit that memory, it's good. If you start using memory that you don't have, it will start swapping. That's not good. You should try to avoid that, but you can do it a little bit. So like if we have these 9 servers here, they can probably run on 10 gigabytes of memory. If they are like using the same operating system, the operating systems as well can share memory. So if 3 of them is running on Windows Server 2012, it will only need to load the Windows 2012 drivers once, and the 2 other servers can be sharing that amount of memory. And this is something that VMware does totally seamlessly. If you haven't seen, I did a video where I installed 15 2008 servers on 6 gigabytes of memory. See that video, I'll link it here. Now you have all your systems running on this virtual host. I'll remove that looks messy. We have our host, and every server on the host is files in a library, and we will go into the computer and we will see those files not on this host. I'm not gonna do that, but if we want to make a backup of this, it's really simple. We can do a copy of a virtual server on a host without even taking it down. We can do a total copy. We can copy the machine over to another machine and power it up over there without even turning off the first one. If this is a database server, you might run into some issues. You might have to shut down the database while you're doing this and then copy it over, like a web server that is live and the database keeps changing. That's not a good idea, because all the changes made while this is copying and going online, those won't be copied with it. So take special care if there's databases that is running. If it's a database, you can just shut down the database and copy the machine over and power it up again. That will be fine. But if it's an online database, it's not a good idea just to move it, and you might corrupt the database. But yeah, let's go see some files, shall we?
And here we are at the computer, and I'm just logged into my VMware. This VMware host is the one that I usually use, and it's my always on host. And I use this. I have a lot of servers living on that one. Most of them are off. Like you see here, these are all the rendering servers that I did a recent video with a Lenovo X3850, and I did some rendering tests on those, and I did a lot of servers. I cloned a lot of servers for that video, and I didn't want to clone new servers, so I copied all the servers over to this server so I can use them next time I am gonna do something similar. And they're about 16 gigabytes each, but well, it's just hard disk space. If I'm gonna make a copy of something on a server like this, I'm hosting a website from one of my good buddies. He has a site called movies.dk, and it's a film site. So he has a live server here. It's an always on server thing, and it's been a while since I took a backup of that. So I don't do this automatically. I kind of just do it when I feel like it. So over here I have another server out there. I have two servers online right now, this one and this one. And I did a backup of that server some times back, and I just called it backup. I could probably go in here to events and maybe see something, maybe not see anything. Weird. It's backup to the local disks on that server. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna take a new backup of that. I have also, he has like 3 servers. He has a alpha server and a beta server and a live server. It's a setup so that he can make changes on the alpha server. I don't know why it's stressing out right now. I really should reboot that. Not running. Okay, never mind. He makes major changes on his website on the alpha server, and he copies it over to the beta server like a beta test, and he tests it. And if everything checks out, they are implemented on the live server. So I will do a backup of his live server over to my other machine. But before we do that, I'll just show you where the live server is at. Here is the Datastore where the live server is. It's LTV VMware LUN 1. So if we right click that and browse Datastore. Did I do that wrong? Oh, there it is. These are the servers that are on my system, and each of them has a folder. So if we go in and find, let's just sort them after name, and we should be able to find, here are the movie. It's a movie site, so it's called movie with weird, but here is the server, and it's contained in this folder. And if we go into that folder, this is what the server looks like. It contains of 5 files. If I copy these files out of the VMware and copy them onto another VMware machine, that would work just fine. That would be great. And more or less that's what I do when I make a copy of it. We can see that this server it's about 10 gigabytes it's taking up of space. The server itself, it has provisioned 100 gigabytes of virtual disk space. So I'm overcommitting my disk so that this server can grow to be 100 gigabytes big. But 5 files. So let's close that. So here we have the server, and what I'm gonna do, I'm just gonna clone this server to another machine, and that's the same as making kind of a copy. I'm probably never gonna be using this copy because it's just a backup. So I'm just gonna back up that server, and this is the live one, so I don't need to make any mistakes. I'm just gonna cancel. I wanna make sure what to call it. I wanna call it something like this, so I'm just gonna borrow this and go down again, and that's it. And we're gonna clone to new virtual machine, and I'm gonna put that in, and we're gonna say that this is the live server, live backup, and we're gonna change the date to today. We have the 22th of 11, 2015. That's nice. That's a good name. Next, which server do we want to place it on? That one. Yes. And if the storage should crash, I really want it to be on something else than the same storage. I have 3 kinds of storage available for the server that this is going to. I have the local disks, and I have the LUN 1, which is the LUN that it's already on, so no good. And I have LUN 2, which is another ice gauzy SAN. I'm gonna put it on the local disks. and we'll just change it to be thin provisioning. It already is, but I'm just gonna make sure that it is. And we're gonna select next. Here we can do some different stuff. We're not gonna do anything, we're just gonna make it clone. And we're not gonna power it on, because if we do that, we could do all kinds of weird stuff. So what we'll be doing now is taking a snapshot of this server. And this is exactly one of the servers that is bad to do this with, because it has a database and people are accessing this all the time. So I'm gonna take a moment picture of it when I do this. So every changes that are done, let's say that in 5 days I need this backup. Everything done in the last 5 days would be lost, but it's probably better than nothing. So we're gonna continue and finish. And now it's gonna be copying to that new location. And this always takes a while. So I'm gonna pause the video and bring you back when that is done. So we're almost done moving this server. It has been taking a while. Believe me, it has been taking a long while. 93, 94, 95, come on. Deleting something. Temporary something probably. Yes. Oh, temporary snapshot. Yeah, what it does is that it takes a snapshot of the live server and it copies that. If you don't know what a snapshot is, it's on a virtual machine you can take a snapshot of it and you will be able to install a bunch of drivers and do a lot of stuff. And if that doesn't work out for you, you can reverse to when you took the snapshot and it will just delete everything that you have done since the snapshot was taken. It's a very practical thing to do. So it's finally done. I have taken this live server that has never been off. It has been serving people online all while we have been doing this, and we have made a copy over here. And should this server somehow go offline, right now we would have a server here that would be ready to take over. That's pretty easy to take a backup like that. I have had quite a lot of questions on how do I back up my systems, and well, to be quite honest, I don't really back up my systems. I don't have anything that I cannot reinstall within a day. Probably the most difficult thing would be my stupid router. Seems to always be a problem to get that up and running, but it wouldn't really take long to reinstall that. I do take backups of this server from my friend who has built this website. So I think we'll just delete the other backup, that one, and just remove that. Delete from disk. And that means that I'm deleting a server from VMware, from the backup server. And it's not a backup server, it's another VMware host. I just feel more safe copying it over to a different machine with some different hard drives. So, well, that's really how to make a backup. Pretty much the same way. I can, if like this server is, let's say this is an old host, I would be able to move all the servers from this host over to this host, even though it's not the same hardware. Actually, that would be the wrong way, because this is a X3650 Model 3 and up here is an X36 Model 2. So it would probably go the other way. This one was the old one and everything would be moved down to the new one. It would run just fine. There wouldn't be any issues whatsoever.
So that's how I back up a VMware server. There's some really nice programs. There's something called Veeam that will help you do this much more efficiently, and you can time it and you can do a lot of stuff. I haven't tried it yet, but I hear good things. Have to try it at some point. That would be a great idea. Even if you're just going to be using one server, I would personally put VMware on the bottom of it, because then you have all the possibilities of doing different stuff later. If you install a physical server, there's a lot more work that goes into moving that over to the virtual environment afterwards than if you put the virtual environment in the bottom of it. You can always put more virtual machines on the host if you find that you need some more, if you have laid the foundations for it. Thank you for watching my videos. Do subscribe to my channel so that you can see me again, and have a really nice day. Bye bye.